Thanks to all of you that were watching on the YouTube last night. We actually had more viewers last night for the VP debate than we had for the final night of the RNC when Trump gave his acceptance speech and we had Hulk Hogan. So I think in honor of that, Maggie, cue up some Hulk Hogan because I think that we need some brother today. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the 2nd of October, 2024, the feast in the commemoration of the Guardian Angels. I think JD Vance had a guardian angel last night. Do you think the guardian angel was tapping him on the shoulder going, no, say this instead? I'm just going to pick up where I left off last night and talk about this Civics Lesson 101 that was conducted on international television last night. If people tuned in to see Trump slugging it out with Biden or Kamala and then having moderators jump in and ruin everything and a 3-on-1 pile-on type of scenario here where everyone is screaming rigged, this thing is rigged from the beginning and that's not true and that's not fair and this and that and the other. They were sorely disappointed because what happened last night was an actual debate. There was actual substance. And the reason, and now don't be flying into the chat rooms and on social media and on the YouTube channel, the CRUSADE Radio Network, in that chat. Just give me a second here. Flying off the handle to think that I'm endorsing Tim Walz or embracing Tim Walz. Walz didn't have anything to do with it. Well, you know what? He kind of did. Yeah. Let me give Governor Walz, as Vance was calling him, credit. The reason that there was an actual debate last night and there was actual substance is because JD Vance brought it. I'm sorry to anyone that disagrees with that. I don't know what to tell you. To the I won't vote and I won't hope and I won't cope crowd, why won't you now? Vance delivered a knockout punch. Trump's going to be elected. There won't be any doubt when the smoldering remains of the Harris-Walz campaign, after the water clears from the Carolinas and the Tennessee River Valley and the upper river valleys in Georgia, it will become apparent that a change in leadership is coming. The American Shershans out there want it. I think that they're going to go out and vote. Richard Barrett talked about it in our pregame show last night. The early voting totals are way down from 2020. And they're way down in places where Democrats need them to be way up. I think that this is going to be an absolute blowout here, and I think that something happened last night for the people that watched this. Walz and Vance are basically on social moral policy mortal enemies. This is teetotaling abolitionist Yankee Northerner versus Southern slave owner who can make a justified case why he should practice chattel slavery. That's how broad that gulf is. It's that big. But during the debate last night, there was actually, I would say that there was dignity, there was some civility, there was actual good conversation, and Vance brought the policy points. And he you could say that he kind of gets wonky sometimes, but it's not for very long. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a little bit of wonkiness. But I think what happened last night, well, first of all, the moderators were just shut down. Nora O'Donnell and the Margaret, whatever her last name was, were just going, in the opening, I said this last night, in the first 90 seconds of that debate, it was over. CBS News was going to be defeated by JD Vance, and he let it be known. He also served Tim Walz notice, dude, don't try and play your I'm a middle-class McDonald's worker stuff in here. I'm actual middle class. Yeah, I made it and I made some money. So what? I started in the hillbilly land as a hillbilly, and I have the life, the life and the memories to prove it. And I just, from the beginning, if you missed it, Waltz gives this rambling 2-minute long answer where he uses the word fundamental 6 times. Because he doesn't know what to say, because he doesn't have a good answer to the opening question. Then they go to Vance, and Vance goes, and Vance just takes over. The only way to view this is JD Vance just took it over. And we're like, no, this is what's going to happen, and this is how we're going to have this conversation. And before we get started, since I have my 2 minutes here, I'm going to introduce myself because, people may not know Governor Waltz and I. And right there, when he gave a dignified nod to Tim Waltz and said, they may not know Governor Waltz and I, it was over. Whatever plan, what do they say in war? When you go into war, going to battle, the first thing that goes out the window is the battle plan. Whatever plan Waltz and Nora O'Donnell and Margaret, whatever her last name is, had for a 3-on-1 pile-on, it was destroyed in the first 90 seconds. And not only was it destroyed, but after Vance's opening 2 minutes, Tim Waltz is sitting there going like, what the hell have I gotten myself into? This guy is not a weirdo loser. I knew I shouldn't have listened to Kamala. I knew I shouldn't have listened to the single cat ladies running this campaign. Waltz knew that he was in for a philosophical and tactical, rhetorical street brawl, and that's what he got. JD Vance resisted the urge to. There were people in our chat room that were calling for Vance to deliver the knockout punch. To knock him out. Go ahead and take him out. Let's end all this. Vance scored no points by calling. He didn't call anyone any names. He didn't even say single cat lady. He could have at one point. I was yelling, say single cat lady, but he didn't. He called no one a name. He was measured. He was calm. He was smart. He was brilliant. He was eloquent. There was an eloquence there. And I want to drill down on this just a little bit here in case you missed it. Most of you did, because I can tell you by the listening numbers and the chat room numbers that most of you snoozed it in because you had no interest in it. You missed it. If you're into any of this whatsoever and you think that there may be some hope left for America, well, I would say that a guy like JD Vance, and policy does matter, and politics do matter, right? Two perfect societies, the church and the state, so the state part does matter. There are a lot of people that used to listen to this radio show and this radio station that walked out earlier this year saying that, no, the only thing that matters is the church. Well, that's not going to happen in your lifetime unless Christ deigns that it does and he works a miracle, but only he can do that. Where we're headed, that's not going to happen. You're stuck with the two perfect societies, the church and the state. We ought to be fine with that. I'm okay with it. St. Thomas Aquinas was stuck with the church and the state. But the difference of what you saw last night, the difference is J.D. Vance had good formation. Finally, I can point to something and I can go and say, well, that's why formation matters. When you hear me say that formation matters, well, Vance displayed what good formation will do for you. So for the first time maybe ever, I don't know that Kennedy did this, but for the first time, and I'm going to have Eric Sammons on, I think in the last hour of the program, the editor of Crisis Magazine, to talk a little bit about this. For the first time last night, for the most part now, there was a question about abortion. Vance did mention fertility treatments. So I would say if you're looking for a defense of Christendom and Catholic social moral principles, I would say J.D. Vance got a 85 out of 100 last night. And I would say that the closest anyone has gotten to that in the televised modern era is probably a 25 out of 100. Formation matters. And it was evident last night that when you have common sense, and common sense is exactly what it is. It says it's common and it's sensible. It's knowledge, common knowledge. When you have common knowledge and you actually believe in the reality of things and you deal with reality, and what is truth? Conformity of the mind to reality. And you pursue truth in everything that you do, you're going to have the mental and intellectual ability to do things like what you saw JD Vance do last night. Now, the temperament that he brought to the debate, I would be very interested. I would love to call him. If I had his number, I'd be calling him this morning. Dude, or sending him text messages. How many rosaries did you say before you went on the stage last night? Did you go to confession yesterday morning? Did you go to mass? Did you have Father Ripperger backstage? Did he give you a minor exorcism so that when you went out there, you had all your sacramentals on? Did you have your brown scapular on underneath your shirt? But something happened last night. It was so bad for the enemy. There's not even a headline about it at Drudge. Let me repeat that. It was so bad. It was such a devastating blow to the left-tard enemy that Drudge doesn't even have a snickety comeback at drudgereport.com. You have to scroll halfway down the page to find one teeny little blurb to VP Debate Borefest. You know why it was boring? Because you lost, Matt. You know why it was boring? Because the creeps at OMSNBC were crushed. You know why it was boring? Because Nora O'Donnell and Margaret, what's her last name? I keep saying Margaret, whatever her last name is. Maybe we'll go with Margaret, whatever her last name is. Margaret and Nora O'Donnell and Margaret, whatever her last name is, were basically taken out and neutered by Vance. There was one point where Senator, we have a lot to get to here. That was the line of the night. Senator, we have a lot to get to. Senator, your mic's cut off. Nobody can hear you, bruh. So, there's that. They actually had to resort to cutting his microphone off because he fact-checked them in real time. Yes?
Margaret Brennan.
Brennan?
Brennan.
Oh, Brennan. Margaret Brennan. Okay. He fact-checked them on the CBP1 app is what it's called. He went, no, you can't make it sound like all of these wonderful Haitians filled green cards out, stood in line, and are hanging out legally in Springfield, Ohio, and a bunch of MAGA people are just racist hick hayseeds and hate them all. So, and that was the one time when Margaret Brennan and Nora O'Donnell actually kind of got a jab in, and they finally had to cut his mic because he wasn't gonna stop here. But so many takeaways from this. They were saying on the Clinton News Network last night, Waltz had too many good points to make. So many, in fact, that he couldn't make them. He was confused, they said. I mean, look, I will play you the clip. He had so many good responses. He was over-prepared. You know what he should have done? He should have done more interviews with us. We would have prepared Waltz. Governor Waltz would have been prepared. I don't think it would have mattered. However, I do agree with the point. See what happens when you hide out in a basement for 2.5 months and you refuse to talk to anyone that's not a friendly, and then you go stand next to a guy who's really not a friendly for 120 minutes, and he gets to have his say, and you can't do anything about it. I'll tell you, the last time there was actual political American government policy that was discussed in a manner like that, the last time it happened, there was a debate for an office, the last time, a federal office, the last time that happened was Mondale, Reagan, 1984. That's the last time that happened. Bush and Dukakis was a joke. Clinton, Bush, and Bush looking at his watch and all that, and Clinton getting up there and saying, well, we have a new way to, I'm with the Democrat Leadership Conference. We're Southerners, and we do things differently than the old school Democrats did them, okay? And Dole versus Clinton, complete dud. Gore versus Bush in 2000, Borefest. And again, just a bunch of arguments over nothing. John Rambo Kerry, we need to put all the farmers out of business and they need to stop poisoning the earth. John Kerry versus Bush, boring. Obama. The three debates that did that, or the two debates that John McCain did. By the way, John McCain was invoked last night. Waltz invoked McCain, said that if McCain hadn't bailed out Trump, then Trump would have done it. I think it was an Obamacare question. And Vance came right back and went, no, that's not the way that didn't happen that way. Let me tell you what Donald Trump did do. Maybe the first Hillary Trump debate, there was some substance, but nothing like we saw last night. End result, folks. If JD Vance went in with a very high bar, he can't screw it up. He has to win on every point. Frank Luntz, Pumpkinhead Frank Luntz, the famous Dial-O-Meal pollster from Fox News, had his own private focus group, or Luntz and Company, for whatever network, hosted basically a debate watch party with supposedly undecided voters, 14 of them, 14 undecided, middle class, middle of the road, one-party affiliated voters. And Luntz tweeted out, what did he tweet out, Maggie? Right at the debate ended, they did their survey, and here was the results. JD Vance won 12-2. In boxing terms, that's a knockout. That's not a technical knockout. That's a freaking knockout. So we have all of the highlights. There really weren't any lowlights. And some of the post-debate spin, we have all that for you. One thing that did not come up, and I'm surprised that they didn't add this. Why didn't a question get asked about the ILA strike? I mean, they came right out the gun with the Iranians bombing the Israelis, but nothing on the ILA strike. I thought that was strange because that's a huge issue. And maybe they didn't go there because the answer that Waltz would have provided and the answer that Vance would have provided, that's another one that that Vance would easily win the day on trade policy. As a matter of fact, one of the most brilliant points last night, well, if you're for clean air and clean water, I'm for clean air and clean water. Stop building things in China where they don't have any regulations on clean air and water. Stop making contracts with countries and doing business with countries that don't care about regulating the clean air and the water. We are the cleanest country in the world. So if you want the water and the air to be cleaner, you ought to build things in America. This is a nice circular logical argument that was made last night. We're going to get into all this. Mark Morano, I knew this was going to come up. I knew one of those hens was going to, one of those single cat lady babes that was hosting the debate. I knew one of them was going to say, and this recent hurricane was the strongest ever in the history of man. And we're seeing now hurricanes that are just out of control strong. They've never been this strong before. And I'm going like, yes, they have. Yes, they have. I can name two for you. It's right off the top of my head. Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita in the same year. I knew it came up, and I thought that Vance's answer on the climate change question was, well, let's talk about it. What can we do about that? Well, if you think that this is a result of carbon emissions, well, we are the lowest carbon emission country in the world. So again, you ought to be moving your manufacturing. We ought to move our manufacturing back here. This was a complete and total evisceration and destruction of the left last night. JD Vance gave a masterclass. They're probably out there. You know what? It might be interesting to turn OMSNBC on instead of Fox News' Morning Maggie, just to watch Morning Ho and the communist, the daughter of Pinko Commie, Brzezinski, just to watch them cry into their weak tea, because that's what they're going to be doing. Folks, we're just getting started. The number one meme, somebody's going to actually print these signs, these yard signs. I think I want one. Trump Vance 24, not friends with school shooters. Let's see here. Know a lot of school shooters. Why did he say? Oh, it was about assault weapons, wasn't it? The question was about a ban on assault weapons. And then Margaret Brennan said, well, you know, back in the day, you were opposed to a ban on assault weapons. All of a sudden, now you're a proponent of it. Why did you change your mind? And that's when Tim Waltz, Tampon Tim and the Tamponettes said, well, I had meetings with school shooters. And all of us in the chat room going like, you met with a school shooter? Which one? Why? Why are you meeting with school shooters? So there was that. Let's talk for a minute here, because we have lots of debate stuff that we will cover. The whole thing. The Iranians, now I still haven't seen the Ayatollah. Have you seen that the Ayatollah has confirmed that it was the Iranians that sent all those ballistic missiles? I know that there was something that was posted on Iranian state media, but unless I missed it, I did not see a statement from the Ayatollah saying, yeah, we retaliated. There was something that came out from the Iranian embassy or the State Department that said, yes, it was our bombs. Yeah, we launched them from Iran at Israel and at Tel Aviv. And Israel should not respond. Again, Israel should not respond. Otherwise, the next strike is going to be far worse, or something to that effect. Folks, you have a madman, an absolute stark, raving, warmongering madman, literal lunatic. This guy belongs in an asylum. Benjamin Netanyahu, commanding the IDF forces. We don't know if they have it, because they won't let any UN weapon inspector in there. But it is believed that the Israelis have nuclear bombs. Lindsey Graham was out yesterday. What we ought to do is there should be a response from the United States, and we should take out their oil refinery capability, because that's how they're making all their money. And if we take away their ability to make money, they won't have any money to bomb bombs and to try and kill our Zionist friends in Israel. Let me just explain something to those of you that may be on the side of, yeah, the Israelis need to turn, what's the phrase that you neocons love to use? Turn Iran into a sheet of glass. Iran, Persia, that's what it used to be called, Persia. Persia outdates you. The Persian people outdate you. As a matter of fact, the Persian people and Persians are in the Old Testament. Look it up. Go to drbo.org and search for Xerxes. I think it's Xerxes, Xerxes. Search for Xerxes. He'll come up. There is reference to Persians. The apostles, I forget which apostle, was it St. Thomas? Which apostle was sent to Persia to go evangelize the Persians? There are holy relic Christian sites in Persia. The idea that we're going to kill all of the Persian people and start by starving them to death, by taking their power plants out. You know, My special ops intel guy told me, Mike, what they're going to do is they're going to try and find, they think they know where the Iranian nuclear generating facility is, the one that's underground, and what they're going to, there was a TV show, we watched it about this, where they blew it up, remember? Maybe it was a movie that we watched. If they try and take that out with a tactical nuke, there's no way to contain nuclear fallout. Whichever way the wind's blowing is the way it's going to go. This is going to lead to an international health and health crisis, okay? There's simply no way to avoid that. But why didn't Biden come out and make some sort of a statement? Now, I'm not one of these people that thinks that we ought to be running foreign policy for the rest of the world. If the Israelis and the Iranians have to duke it out in a war, which they've been doing, Jews versus the sons of Allah for millennia, well, that probably is going to continue to happen. I don't see anything in the offing that's going to bring it to an end other than the conversion of the Jewish people to Christianity. That would bring some of it to an end. Then it would just change the focus of enemies. And then Islam, Muslims would just hate them the way they hate us. They think we're dogs, infidels. So the world's paying very close attention to this. This might actually be an instance where you actually need someone to act as though they're president of the United States. Go out and say something diplomatic. Don't send Victoria Nuland, the warmongering creep. Don't send Victoria Nuland over there to go negotiate or go sit at the UN or go make a phone call to the Israeli ambassador. Send someone to go like, dude, we don't want a World War III. We're already on the way to being broke. Look, it would take $238 trillion of instant cash infusion into the United States just to get back to being broke. That's how broke we are. I don't think we need another war. But Biden is nowhere to be seen. I know there was some statement, Vice President Harris stands with our friends in Israel. Stands with your friends in Israel to do what? The Israelis, I talked about this the other day, are bombing water treatment facilities and power generating plants in Yemen. The people of Yemen are some of the poorest people on earth. The Saudi Arabians have been bombing them for a decade. So, waging war against the people of Yemen, why would you do that? There has been, look at the pictures that are coming out of Beirut, Lebanon. I must have missed the part where on October the 7th last year, where there were hang gliders flown by Lebanese people on October the 7th. There was no talk of Lebanon until a couple of months ago. Maybe not even 2 months ago. So there is an attempt and there is a desire out there for war. The people that want it like war. They need war. They make money off of war. They make money off of people dying and being killed in wars. And in this instance, you would hope or you would expect that someone that's in authority, and when you release a statement, okay, fine. Harris put out whatever she said, fine. This is incumbent on whoever the president is to go speak on behalf of the people of the United States to go like, we don't want a war. Let me try and explain this to you. We're not sending American GIs, American sons and daughters to go be under the command of Mossad. They're not going to go fight next to the IDF. It's not going to happen. So you better find another way. And if you're expecting that that's going to happen, that's not going to happen. You need more Patriot missiles? Okay, we can talk about that. To fortify your Iron Dome, we can talk about that. We're not sending our troops over there. And think about this. How many troops are stationed abroad that would have been at their home bases in Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee? Let's expand the circle, shall we? Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Expand that circle out a little bit. How many National Guard troops, which would come in really handy when you're doing a response to a storm like Helene, aren't there to even be called up by governors because they're somewhere in Ukraine, or they're somewhere in Somalia, or they're somewhere in whatever Hades forsaken part of the world where we have them deployed? Isn't this a great example here? I wish this would have come up in the debate last night of why we need to mind our own damn business and why the resources that are going to be needed to rebuild an area like Afton, Tennessee, Asheville, North Carolina, Lake Lure, North Carolina, Valdosta, Georgia, the resources that are going to be needed, if they had to be provided by the government, maybe they ought to be available. Instead, we've blown and allowed Congress and Speaker Zion King and Pelosi to blow $400 billion. And they want to keep the spigot open and throw it at Ukraine. You know, there are things that are happening right now. I agree with I think it was W.K. Summer in the chat room down there. We are literally right now. You have two warring factions, or two views of how things ought to be. Maybe how government ought to work and what it should do, which we think very little, and think that we should spend the next 20 or 30 years paying debt down and not running any more up, running surpluses so that the children don't have to be taxed for the sins of the parents. I wish that would come up in a debate. So in any event, I don't know what's going to happen with the Israeli response. Why don't you stop bombing other people? Have you not killed enough of the Hezbollah? Supposedly, he told us Hezbollah was the greatest threat to humanity in the history of the world. 5 years ago, it was ISIS, or 8 years ago, it was ISIS. Now it was Hezbollah. Well, I saw the chart. I saw the checklist. According to the Israelis, they've killed everyone that was a commander in Hezbollah. They also took out a couple of Iranians. So, well, you have a clip on this. Is there any way you can find? I didn't play this one yesterday, and I should have. We're gonna get back to the debate. The president, was it the king of Jordan or the country Jordan, that came out and said to the Israelis, basically, look, we're a peaceful nation. We're your neighbor. Stop killing people. And he basically was yelling, going to anyone that would listen to him, people of the world, leaders of other countries of the world, tell the Israelis to stop killing everyone in our area. It's going to lead to a war. We're going to get dragged into it, and we don't want to go to war. It was 2 days ago on the Cut Shiite. You had it, Maggie. In any event, there's lots to talk about. Mike Churchill here on the Crusade Radio Network, inviting you to go hang out in the Crusader Stadium chat room at Crusade Channel. Jordanian FM. That's it. This was 2 days ago. This was before the Iranians struck, and this now seems like prophecy, because the guy's going like, "You're going to escalate." This is everyone in this circle here is going to get bombed, basically, or is going to be dragged into your war if the rest of the world doesn't tell you to stop.
I want to add one sentence. The Israeli Prime Minister came here today and said that Israel is surrounded by those who want to destroy it, an enemy. We're here, members of a Muslim Arab Committee, mandated by 57 Arab and Muslim countries. And I can tell you here, very unequivocally, all of us are willing to, right now, guarantee the security of Israel in the context of Israel ending the occupation and allowing for the emergence of a Palestinian state, independent state, along the efforts that we all agree. He is creating that danger because he simply does not want the two-state solution. And if he does not want the two-state solution, can you ask the Israeli officials, what is their end game? other than just wars and wars and wars. I'm telling you, all of us in the Arab world here, we want a peace in which Israel lives in peace and security, accepted, normalized with all Arab countries in the context of ending the occupation, withdrawing from Arab territory, allowing for the emergence of an independent, sovereign Palestinian state on June 4, 1967, lines with occupied Jerusalem as capital. That is our narrative. That is, and we will guarantee Israel's security in that context. Can you ask Israelis what's their narrative other than I'm going to continue to go to war, I'm going to kill this and kill that and destroy this and that? The amount of damage that Israeli government
This guy's
has done,
good.
30 years of efforts to convince people that peace is possible, this Israeli government killed it. The amount of dehumanization, hatred, bitterness will take generations to navigate through. So ultimately the question is, we want peace. And we've laid out a plan for peace. Ask any Israeli official, what is their plan for peace? You'll get nothing, because they're only thinking of the first step. We're going to go destroy Gaza, inflame the West Bank, destroy Lebanon, and after that, they have no plan. We have a plan. We have no partner for peace in Israel. There is a partner for peace in the Arab world.
Folks, what's that guy's name? The text is so small on my monitor, I couldn't read his name. He's from the country of Jordan. Did you hear that? 57 Arab Muslim country alliance is here right now today to say we will guarantee the safety of Israel. You want a two-state solution? Come to the table. Let's. Ayman Safadi is his name. Ayman Safadi, a prime minister or secretary of state of the country of Jordan. Did you hear that? Everyone ought to share that soundbite right there. Send it to all your little Zionist buddies out there with the blue and gold flags and the Israeli flags as their avatars on their social media. The Israelis don't want peace. Netanyahu is a madman. He's a freaking war criminal, and he ought to be treated like one. But you know what? It may be that he knows that he's a war criminal, and the only way he stays off the gallows or out of the Hague, a trial at the Hague, is by staying at war. No, we're not going to negotiate with anyone. We're going to continue. Israel has the right to do, and Israel has the right. Jordan is a neighbor. By the way, those of you that are theologians and Bible scholars and love reading your Bible, and I'm just curious here, I don't know the answer. How many times does the proper noun Jordan appear in the Old Testament? Wasn't Christ baptized in the river Jordan? So again, we're talking about ancient people here, and Americans making the Israelis have the right. No one has the right to snuff out entire cultures. You do not have the right as an American citizen to demand that your government side with people who they want to wipe Israel off the face of the map. Seems to me like Israel has sights set on, already wiped Palestine off the face of the map and Palestinians. Seems to me like they now want to wipe Lebanon and Lebanese people off the face of the map. Okay, folks, 844-527-8723, our call and line telephone number, 844-5-CRUSADE. Kurt Wallace, to the telephones, quickly. We're having an issue with our telephone. All right, let's get to some debate stuff. We'll talk. We'll come back to all this. Let's start at okay. Civics 101. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Start with digital media file number 7. This was at a MAHA, Make America Healthy Again event the other day. I think this is another one people ought to pin to their social media profiles and commit it to memory because it's really good. All right, 3 rules. RFK Jr. give you 3 rules everyone ought to know. You ought to know Rule 1, Rule 2, and Rule 3, and we'll all be better off.
I want you all to remember 3 things. 3 rules. One is that when you give a government a power, it will never voluntarily relinquish it. Second rule, if you give him a government a power, it will ultimately abuse that power to the maximum extent possible.
Yep.
And the third rule is that nobody ever complied their way out of totalitarianism.
No one ever complied their way out of totalitarianism. I think that that's true. All right, last night's debates. The dominating performance by JD Vance. Here, I said 90 seconds in. It was actually 125 seconds in. Digital media file number 9. This is how you defang a 3-on-1 setup here. Ambush. This is how you defang it. This is how you take the chessboard. You're looking at a chessboard. Take the queen off the board immediately. Just remove. You're going to have to try to get checkmate without having a queen, which is the most powerful piece on the board. Vance took the queen off of the board in the first 2 minutes, and it was all downhill for the left and for the moderators. And Kamala Harris, she's done. Here's how he did it.
I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are. I was raised in a working class family. My mother required food assistance for periods of her life. My grandmother required Social Security help to raise me, and she raised me in part because my own mother struggled with addiction for a big chunk of my early life. I went to college on the GI Bill after I enlisted in the Marine Corps and served in Iraq. And so I stand here asking to be your vice president with extraordinary gratitude for this country, for the American dream that made it possible for me to live my dreams. And most importantly, I know that a lot of you are worried about the chaos in the world and the feeling that the American dream is unattainable. I want to try to convince you tonight over the next 90 minutes that if we get better leadership in the White House, if we get Donald Trump back in the White House, the American dream is going to be attainable once again.
I wish you would have had a Sennheiser SM57 mic, because you could have just a handheld. Which is what they use at a lot of these kind of town hall debates. It's a very famous microphone, the Sennheiser. It's either an SM58 or an SM57. I wish you would have had one and went like, yeah, and that's why you should vote for Donald Trump for president. Mic drop. Just dropping it. And then look at Walt and go like, what you got, bro? What are you going to do about that? And again, a most epic performance last night. We have lots of digital media files to catch you up on. Just surveying a couple of headlines here because I like to tell others or share what others are thinking about the issues of the day. Oh, by the way, to their credit, Margaret Brennan asked Tim Walz, dude, or was it Nora O'Donnell that asked the question? I think it was Nora O'Donnell. Hey, bro, where were you in 1989? You said you were there in Tiananmen Square. That's not what the Minnesota State Department of State says. They say they don't know where you were. You have said that you were there and that you were legally there and that you were on a visa and that you were there to go to give a lecture or whatever it was that you said. Well, why did the reports conflict? Were you actually there with the Chi-Coms? Was basically the gist of the question. And what did Walt say? I'm a knucklehead sometimes. That's what he said. I'm a knucklehead sometimes. And at the end of the question, he didn't answer the question. He goes, I don't know. I can't tell you where I was. You don't know where you were in communist China in 1989. Maybe some of what they've been saying about this guy is actually true. Mark Morano, top of the hour. Folks, we're just getting started. Right back in a flash.